Hi, Year 3s. So it's the last instalment of the Train to Impossible Places for this week. And remember, we left Susie and Wilmot heading off to the residence lounge to find Wilmot's mum. The residence lounge was a long, high-ceilinged room with tall, arched windows along the back wall. Susie could see a broad balcony outside them, and beyond that, the void above which the town hung. The lounge was littered with armchairs and sofas, which in turn were littered with elderly trolls wrapped in tartan blankets and woolen shawls. Some of them chatted together quietly, some snoozed, some just sat and stared at nothing. One of them, she noticed, was bright orange and had a pair of carrots up his nose. "This is the old guard," Wilmot whispered in Susie's ear as Dorothy hustled them in through the door. "Veteran posties, all of them. There's nowhere they haven't been, nothing they haven't delivered. They're heroes." A matron glided from one troll to another, tucking in blankets, pausing to rest a comforting hand on her shoulder, refilling water glasses from the jug she carried. She was taller and thinner than Dorothy, but the family resemblance was unmistakable. She turned an imperious first look on Wilmot and then on Susie. "Look who's stopped by, Gert," said Dorothy, giving Wilmot a little shove in the back. "So I heard," said Gertrude with a slight knotting of her brow. "Wilmot, what brings you here outside visiting hours?" "Sorry, ma'am," he said in a small voice. "I know you're busy, but I'm in a bit of a fix. I think the old guard might be able to help." There was a creak of bones as some of the elderly trolls turned to watch the conversation. Then Susie saw a funny thing happen. A ripple of delighted recognition ran out to the far edges of the lounge, and within a few seconds every troll in the room was looking at them. No, not at them, but at Wilmot. Smiles broke out, hands were raised in greeting, and a buzz of excited conversation rose all around them. Gertrude noticed this with a sideways glance. "Can it wait? I've just settled them all down." "Not really," he said, his eyes darting round the room in nervous acknowledgment of the attention he was receiving. "I need someone who can withdraw a fact of entry from the post office vault," he swallowed. "Susie, my new postal operative here, is making a delivery to the Ivory Tower." His smile wavered as he watched his mother's face for her reaction. At first there wasn't one. She simply looked Susie over again, from her by now filthy slippers to the crazed bird's nest of her hair, now complete with yellow ends. The assessment finished, Gertrude directed her gaze back to Wilmot and arched one pencil-thin eyebrow. Then the other eyebrow rose to meet it, and her own smile blossomed big and bold and sincere. "Oh, my boy, I knew you could do it!" She dropped the water jug, rushed forwards, and scooped him up in her arms, planting a barrage of kisses on his nose. Then she danced with him, spinning him round in a circle so quickly that his feet didn't touch the floor. They both laughed, and the room erupted in applause. "Postmaster to your own postie," she said, finally setting him back on his feet and fanning herself with a hand. "Just like your dad. He'd have been so proud." She reached up and wiped away a single tear. "So you'll help," he said. "Oh, darling, of course I will." She looked round at the elderly trolls, smoothing down her apron and bringing her smile under control, but she couldn't keep the happiness from her voice. "Ladies and gentlemen, the Impossible Postal Service needs your help. If any of you have a fact of entry in the post office vault, please make yourself known to the postmaster and his new staff." The words had barely left her mouth before Susie and Wilmot were surrounded. The elderly trolls all sprang from their chairs and closed in on them with surprising agility, gummy lips smiling, withered hands stretching out to shake theirs, clap them on the back, and finger Susie's deputy badge. "Welcome to the club," they said. "Never thought I'd live to see another delivery to the Ivory Tower. Always good to see new blood. Are you taking dinner orders? I'll have the sponge pudding." Susie smiled and shook as many hands as she could as the crowd shuffled ever closer. Wilmot, to her surprise, seemed to have put the matter of the Ivory Tower to one side for a moment and was lapping up the attention, greeting the trolls like old friends. "Mrs. Horn, so good to see you. How's the leg? And Mr. Litch, are those teeth still giving you trouble?" "And yes, I'm thrilled, Mr. Rumpo. She's already got 2 successful deliveries under her belt." "We'll never get anywhere if he keeps going on like this," she thought, and was just about to say so when a strong hand seized hers and pulled her clear of the throng. Dazed, she found herself eye to eye with Gertrude. "You'll have to excuse them," she said, releasing Susie's hand. "They don't often get visitors. Between you and me, I don't think Wilmot meets enough people either." She gave Susie an appraising stare, although I might be underestimating him. "We sort of bumped into each other," said Susie. "I'm just helping out for a bit." "Well, I'm very glad you are," said Gertrude. "The Impossible Postal Service is like a family. It's been shrinking for far too long. It's good to have you with us, Susie." Gertrude's smile returned, wise and reassuring, and Susie found it easy to smile back. The commotion of the crowd died away suddenly. They both turned to see the knot of old trolls opening up, leaving one individual in the centre. His skin was rusty orange and liver spotted. His nose was as sharp as a pickaxe blade. He held aloft a fine gold chain for which dangled a small key. Wilmot's eyes lit up. "Mr. Trellis, can you help us?" Aye, the old troll said. I've got one. I've got a fact of entry in the vault. Marvellous, said Gertrude. The postmaster and his staff are very short of time, so the rest of you please say your goodbyes. She beamed at Wilmot and Susie for a second, while I fetched the bus. The bus was a large cable car which glided into view with much creaking and grinding of gears. It looked to Susie like a converted railway carriage, its peeling burgundy paint revealing the old wood beneath, and its few surviving windows all rattling as it halted itself level with the balcony outside the lounge. Susie, Wilmot, and Mr. Trellis were standing on the balcony, hugging themselves against the cool wind, picking at their clothes. Behind them, Dorothy and the remainder of the old guard had their faces pressed against the windows, set watching them. Are you sure it's safe? Susie whispered to Wilmot, as Gertrude waved from the driver's cabin. Oh, yes, he said, waving back. Grandpa Honks built it. It was one of his proudest achievements. And how long ago was that? She asked. You know, I'm not sure, he said, reaching out to open the bus door. The handle came off in his hand. Just needs a bit of spit and polish, he said with a smile. It didn't look as confident as he probably wanted it to. The door flapped open and Mr. Trellis sprang aboard. The bus groaned and dipped under his weight. Susie made a conscious effort not to look down as she stepped over the narrow gap from the balcony. She didn't want to be reminded of the fathomless depths of the canyon above her, and looked down at the reassuring solidity of the floor beneath her feet instead. The cable to which the bus was attached was an outlying strand of thick web stretching in an ugly cat's cradle between the largest buildings under the bridge. There seemed to be some complex system of connections, and she even saw what looked like a traffic light at some of the larger intersections. What few vehicles she could see looked like antique roller coaster trains slung between the cables, rattling past at some speed. She sat beside Wilmot and prayed that the bus wouldn't be travelling that fast. All aboard, called Gertrude. All present and correct, Wilmot said. He pulled the door shut after him, and Susie noticed that he'd fastened it with a length of string around a nail. With another screech of cold metal, the bus swung into motion, moving in fits and starts along the cable. Susie watched the rest of Holmes slide out of sight. The old guard clustered at the windows, waving them off. I'm so glad you got to meet them, said Wilmot. They're a great bunch. A lot of them were friends with my dad and my grandpa. Yes, they were very nice, she said, glad of the opportunity to take her mind off the journey. Mr. Trellis gave her a gummy smile from the seat opposite. Working as a postie was the greatest adventure of my life, he said. The places I saw, the people I met. You're going to love it, lass. Thank you, she said, trying not to stare at the horribly distorted reflection in the shiny steel plate that was screwed to the old troll's scalp. Spotted this, eh? He grinned and rapped his knuckles against it. I got this delivering a birthday card to the Princess of Uppelstadt. The bus rode over a set of points with a jarring shake that rattled the windows again. Susie's stomach did a little flip. When she looked outside, she was shocked to realise that the bus was now right side up. The canyon lay below them, and the buildings of the underside were once more upside down. A birthday card, said Susie. Doesn't sound that dangerous. It wasn't supposed to be, he said, but she'd been kidnapped by her uncle, the Archduke, who was holding her at the summit of the palace clock tower. You know how these royals are. Anyway, it was quite a climb. When she saw me coming, he panicked and came at me with his sword. That's terrible, said Susie, horrified. How could he hurt you for just delivering a card? Oh, he didn't. The silly oaf tripped off over his own feet and plunged to his death. But once the princess opened the card and realised there wasn't any birthday money in it, she threw a tantrum, pushed me off the tower. Susie was speechless. Luckily, the Archduke broke my fall. That's horrible, she said. I can't hold it against her. She was only 3. The troll cackled. Of course. Then there's the time I lost my leg to a giant clam in the swamps of Granada. He tugged his trouser leg, revealing a more shiny metal beneath. I don't like to cut you short, Mr. Trellis, Gertrude said, but we're nearly there. Susie looked out of the window and saw she was right. They were close under the curve of the bridge now, the jumble of the underside spread out surrounding them. A few seconds later, the bus rose into an opening in the stone. Iron girders and patches of old brickwork slid past the windows as they climbed back up through the superstructure. Susie caught glimpses of more abandoned spaces, of dormant machinery and half-hidden passages, before they finally emerged into daylight. Muted and grubby though it was positively blinding after the twilight of the underside. The bus ground to a noisy halt, and Gertrude applied the handbrake. The overside, she called. Everybody off! And that's where we're going to leave it for this week. So we'll find out what they're going to do on Monday.